New interview, 2 in a row. This is like the first time ever on my YouTube thing that there's been 2 interviews in a row that I've actually done back to back and not some re-release. And today I got the legend himself, one of the recording gurus of the Bay. Thank you, Charles Toshio himself.
Hello.
I was thinking about this before the interview, and I thought about this question this morning. Where does the name Toshio come from? Because I've never ever in my life ever heard the name Toshio in my life.
So Toshio is my middle name.
Oh,
full name is Charles Toshio Carver.
Carver. Okay, I've heard Carver before.
Yeah. I think I'm pretty sure like the kid from The Grudge or one of those movies is named Toshio. I think that's the only that's the only other person.
That's the only reference you have.
Yeah, that's the only famous person with the name Toshio. But yeah, I just went by Charlie growing up, and then I feel like there's especially like I'm half Japanese. Like I feel like there's a certain point where anyone who's like mixed like kind of has like a not identity crisis. They're like, oh, like I look pretty white. But then I was like, oh, like I had this big ass Japanese family, and then for a while I was like, oh, like I want to be like more part of that, so I started going by Toshio, and then
I see.
I got to college, and then the amount of professors, I'm like, hi, I'm Toshio, and they look at me just like, what'd you just say?
What?
And I was like, I'm Charles. Oh, okay,
Dude, that's so funny.
Yeah.
It does it like. Do you know if it like means anything? Because I have like because my middle name is Savio, and I've only heard ever one person named Savio.
Where's that name come from?
I have no fucking clue, but I
Okay.
think it means sage or something like that. I don't know. My parents are gonna roast me if I get that wrong, but
God.
I think it means like sage. Do you know if like Toshio like has any like meaning or anything like that, or is it just like is it like a common Japanese like middle name or something like that?
The meaning is it's my grandfather's name.
Oh,
and there's
okay,
like
gotcha.
another like story of like why I go by Toshio because of him. I've never met him, but like he died when my mom was like 11. So like there was another thing where I was like, oh, like I hear all this cool shit about this guy, like, and he died so young. Like I don't keep his name going. That's cool. But I'm pretty sure Toshio is like the equivalent of like Steve in English. It's just like the most common like Japanese name.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah,
All right, I'm discovering new shit.
His name was Toshio Nakamura, and that's just like it's literally like Steve Smith, like in terms of like Japanese names. It's just like his Nakamura is like the most generic
last name. Okay,
yeah,
gotcha. Oh, interesting. So you were saying that your family's Japanese. Where are you from originally? Because I assume you're from the Bay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So where were you like born and raised in this whole large area of California?
Born and raised San Jose.
Nice.
Grew up. I think. How old was I? Like the first 6 years of my life, I lived like downtown San Jose. Parents' first house. Then we moved to South San Jose, where I've been living. Just. My entire family's from San Jose, like minus one cousin who lives in LA, which we roast her for constantly.
Okay, nice.
So I'm a little biased, like, it's hard to be like, oh, I want to move here when it's like, oh, my whole family, like all my friends are from the Bay, and like San Jose I think is just so like, in the middle of everything. So I think it's like the best city in the Bay.
Nice, dope. Well, I mean, a lot of people would probably agree with you.
Oh yeah.
Everyone from San Jose thinks it's the best city in the Bay.
It is. It's funny, homie Sasha, who like she helps out here sometimes, like she's from Baltimore, and like when she first moved to she lives in Oakland, but like when she first started like coming to sessions and like meeting bands from San Jose, she's like, oh, what's so cool about San Jose? And like especially like Matt from Natural Human Instinct,
yeah,
he's like dog, and he just starts like naming all this stuff, and it's like it's just like it's a really cool diverse spot. It's huge. Like you can drive 10 minutes and be in a suburb, and then another 10 minutes and be in like a city, and then another 10 minutes and be in the hills. Like
yeah,
it's just a nice variety. It's not just like heaving city with like shitloads of traffic and tiring.
I feel like everyone from San Jose is like very tight knit as well. There's like a good like community of people who live in San Jose, and everyone is friends and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I was talking to Matt again about this, where like San Jose is so big that like there's like a couple high schools that are like grouped together, and like you kind of know people based on like they know a friend or whatever, and like there's some people you never would ever cross paths with, and Matt and I were talking about that. I was like, dude, like what high school did you go to? Like because I feel like, you know, we get along pretty well, and I was like, I don't know, like anyone like in your circle that you mentioned. He's like, oh, I went over here. And I was like, oh yeah, like, you know, there was no like public transit that went that way from like where I like grew up, so like it makes sense. And it's just funny that like, you know, they're from completely different side of town. It's like, oh yeah, like now we're like in this larger circle.
Yeah, I get you. So you grew up in San Jose, obviously, and were your parents? You mentioned being like Japanese or half Japanese. So is one of your parents like? Did they immigrate here, or was there like where are your folks from, like originally?
So I'm like, I think like third or fourth generation Japanese. My mom, she's a Japanese one. Her family, I think, is from Monterey originally, or like down south, somewhere like that. But you know, third, fourth generation Japanese.
Okay, gotcha.
Dad is basically just white. he's like Portuguese, Irish. Like,
okay, getcha.
And his family's, you know, I think they're from Santa Barbara or some shit. But they've been in San Jose for, you know, 2-3 generations
on generations.
Yeah, so they've been here for a while.
Okay, gotcha. So you're certified San Jose, local. Yeah. So I guess, you know, talking about all that and stuff, like what was it like getting into music? I guess at a younger, I assume you were pretty young when you got into music. Was your family very like musically driven, or was there a lot of like arts and stuff like that happening in your family, or are you kind of like the first person to be like branching into music and stuff like that?
So my dad plays guitar.
Okay.
But like there's a couple weird points in my life where I kind of got more into music, because when I first, you know, growing up, like I feel like there's like a good chunk of like people, like, you know, growing up, your parents are like, oh, like check this out, this out, or whatever, and like I feel like half of my friends were like, yeah, or the other half are like, fuck you, like I don't want to do that. And that was me with music for a while, where I was just like, oh, like that's cool, like I'm gonna go play video games or go ride my bike or something like that.
Oh, I see, gotcha.
And then my family did go-karting for like I feel like almost 10 years. So that was
like as a unit.
Yeah, like me and my brother did it, and like that was like in essence, it was sort of like touring in a band. We would drive all over California. Like we did like a couple races like out of state. And that was like my childhood. Like, you know, on the weekends we would travel, do racing, hang out with my friends. And then like I'd go to school, then hang out with my friends there, and like, you know, do whatever a kid in like, you know, elementary school, middle school does.
Just kind of fucking off.
Yeah, exactly. You know, just like, you know, it's like text your friend or hit him up on MySpace, like, hey, let's go for a bike ride, or like, let's go over here and just hang out in downtown or something like that.
Yeah.
But then my family had to stop because, you know, you have to have a certain level of income to have to throw away into racing. And we were definitely like, I mean, poor isn't the right word, but we definitely were not the richest family there. We were like just middle class enough where we can afford it. And then there's a certain point where both my parents thought they're going to lose their job. I think it wasn't during the recession, but it was around that time.
Like like late 2000s, early 2010s.
It was like 2000. Actually, shit, maybe it was the recession. It was like 2008 or something.
Yeah, that would definitely be like in it. Yeah.
And then, you know, that first summer when we weren't racing, I was just sitting at home. Like, you know, a lot of my friends either like they went away for the summer to like hang out with other family or went to summer camps, and I was just like, oh, like I'm just kind of chilling here. So I'd, you know, whether I'd ride my bike by myself or play video games. And then at one point I just got so bored, I was just like, that guitar has been staring at me on the wall for like a week. I'm gonna like try to play that. And then that was it. Like it was bass first. And then I heard
a little easier.
Yeah, I think it was like
to pick up at least.
Yeah, I think I like tried the guitar, and my dad was like, "Oh, like you could do bass first, it's probably easier." And I was like, "You're definitely right."
It's the one finger instead of them forming chords and shit like that.
The one finger, and then it was thanks to Rock Band. I can't even remember the song, but I heard like a palm mute on guitar for the first time, and my little brain was just like,
"You're like shit, that's so fucking heavy."
I was like, "That is so dope." And then that was like, you know, I went to like, I tried to plug into all my dad's amps and turn the distortion all the way up, and it sounded like shit. And I was just trying to learn how to like palm mute and play like metal songs and shit like that. And then got to high school. Everyone has the one friend who's like, hey, come to a show with me. And I went to see, I don't even remember the band, but there was this venue in Los Gatos that was like, it was on, I can't remember the name. It was in like a high school.
Okay.
And it was just like this little community center. And like, there's so many random bands that would like come through there. And that was like the first show I went to. And then there's the Refuge in Cupertino, which like, I feel like a lot of people like my age, like their first shows were there. And that was like the venue for so long. And then that shut down. And then here I am.
Were there any spots like back in the day that you're like, damn, I saw so many cool shows there. Like, I wish that spot was still around, because I feel like everybody has their own like answer for that question.
Yeah.
But I was just curious, like, if since you've been going to shows for a long time, if there were any spots from like, the South Bay from back in the day that you're like, damn, I saw so many fucking shows there. I wish that spot was still around.
Honestly, I think it was the Rock Shop in downtown San Jose was probably like, because a lot of people will say like, oh, like the Cave and stuff, but I started going to shows like, I think right after that. Like I wasn't friends then when they went to those shows, so I never heard about the shows, or like it like closed down when I started going to shows, and I was a freshman, so 2008, 2009. But the Rock Shop in downtown San Jose, like the location was ass because it's downtown city, like parking. I mean, there was like a park. I'm pretty sure there's a parking garage like not far, but like I could take the light rail there. Like
yeah, totally.
It was like in a weird like complex where there was like a barbershop, a tattoo shop, like a smoke shop or something. It was like a long hallway, bunch of shops, and then there's this giant venue. And over the years, they kind of like shifted it, moved stuff around. It just kept getting better and better. Where I was like, damn, like because like the shows weren't always the most poppin' back then, and then I think now we're like there's like this new generation of people going to shows. It's like, dude, if we had that venue where it was a pretty big venue too.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, if we had that place for shows, like it had like a proper stage, like there was like it was just structured correctly where you can have good shows. But yeah, that's probably like the main venue that I missed, just because even though it was gross at times, but yeah, that would have been the best venue to have like right now.
Yeah, totally. So you mentioned like your dad was like playing music and stuff like that. When you picked up the guitar for the first time, was he like, yeah, like that's so sick that you want to do that? Or was he just like, whatever? Or was he like, no, don't do that? Like I wasted so much of my life doing that. I don't know. But was he stoked, or when you decided to start playing music? Or
he was stoked, but I think he wanted like me to play like this. I think he was so, because he's like, oh, I have something like to jam with, but like I didn't like any of the music that he liked.
What was he into?
Like jam bands, like Grateful Dead,
yeah,
like, do acid.
Yeah, exactly.
Listen to like prog rock stuff, and like which is like
whereas you're into like metalcore and shit like that.
Yeah, I mean like the first like I feel like 90% of kids, like the first CD I had was like Green Day, and like it was just like hearing like distorted guitars and palm mutes and just it was like Green Day. And then I forgot who. I had a friend that showed me like MySpace, or not MySpace, MTV.com, where you can like watch all the music videos that they would air like late at night again.
Oh, gotcha.
I would see like I watched like AFI music videos, like Avenged Sevenfold music videos, and like just all the standard like entry level bands.
This was definitely like that era too, like 2000s of like discovering that sort of thing of like Avenged or those bands that you were talking about. That's cool.
Definitely, yeah, and like then I got in the Slipknot, and then that was my still is one of my favorite bands. And
yeah,
then,
great band.
Being on Bandcamp and YouTube, just stumbling into the black hole of whatever
the recommended is, or
whatever random genre that the algorithm wants to show you, and then just that's my music taste kind of went to shit from there.
Okay,
after that,
totally. So when did you start like getting? When did you start progressing on the guitar? Because everybody, I feel like for most people, you hit a point either where you're like, this is too hard, or you actually start to get really into it and you start getting better and stuff like that. When was that kind of point for you where you're like, all right, I can actually like start writing songs, and like I'm actually like not a bad player at all? What was that point kind of for you?
So I was fortunate. One of my best friends, like all throughout high school, Julian, he played in a band called Forlorn.
Okay.
And he's like the best guitarist I know. And like, we're ultra competitive. So like I would learn something pretty cool and he'd be like, I could do that. And then he does it better. I'm like, fuck you, I can do that way better. And then we would challenge each other basically. Like it wasn't like, we would never say that to each other's faces, but like definitely whenever one of us played something, the other one would just be kind of just like taking notes and be like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll see you next week. And then, we'd come back and do something else. But like, I feel like most like metalheads go through a phase where like, you're into just like chunky metal stuff and then you get into like shreddy guitar music. And like I had that like phase where I was like, whether it was like trying to like learn tech death songs or just like I would hear something and I was like, that shit sounds like it's gonna hurt. Like I want to try learning that. And then I would just do that. And then like I said,
that would be all you do for like a week.
Yeah. And then like, homie Julian would be like, what are you playing? I was like, oh, it's this band Meshuggah or like this Necrophagist. And he's like, oh, that's what's up. And then he'd go home and learn all their songs. And
you're like, fuck.
The songs that like I would hear and be like, oh, it's too hard. He would go home and learn it like unbeknownst to me. And then he'd be playing like a riff when we're hanging out and just like, damn, it's not that hard. I could do that. And then
dang.
So I'm very fortunate. Like I feel like I got pretty good at guitar fast because when I met him,
you just had someone pushing you.
Yeah, because he was playing guitar for at least like a year or two before me. So like he was pretty adept at it already, and then I picked it up quick, and then he was like, oh, this dude just picked it up in like a couple months.
Dude, that's crazy because the metal gods, Metallica, the James Hetfield, I remember him telling a story or something like that where he had a friend in high school, like before he was like playing in bands or anything like that, almost like what you were saying. He had a friend who like they would both like learn like just stuff they were listening to and have that kind of like mentality of like, oh, you learned that? Damn, fuck, I gotta go learn that now. And then just kept having that like back and forth like I don't even want to say call it rivalry, but like friendly competition.
It is,
if you
honestly,
will. It's like a friendly competition, you know what I mean? But like it pushes you to get better. And I think that like, fucking if Metallica was doing that, then that goes to show that like, that shit actually does work. And I mean, you had it as well, like in high school, it sounds like similarly.
No, definitely. It's like, it's funny, like just having someone, I mean, that's why I feel like most people love YouTube videos is if you just watch someone do something that like you're either afraid of, you're like, oh, I can't do it. If you watch someone do it, you're just like, that fool just did that.
You're like, wait, slow that down like a lot, and then I'm going to work my way up.
And then like, I feel like every musician's like literal worst fear is like a small like 10-year-old Asian kid somewhere in the middle of nowhere is shredding so much harder than you. And you're just like, fuck.
Yeah, totally.
Like, I guess I got to practice more. And then you're like, oh, I can do that. And then someone, you meet a new guitar friend or instrument friend and they're like, oh, like, how do you do that? It's like, dude, it's so easy. And they do it and they show their friends and everyone just gets better.
Everyone gets better, yeah.
And it's more fun because you can jam with more people. If like everyone's on the same level, you're like, yo, I'm doing this. And they're like, I got you. That's easy. And then...
Dude, competition breeds greatness for sure.
Honestly, like being a little, like, being civil about it, obviously, but like being competition is good. Like,
yeah, that friendly competition is sick. So obviously you're into this heavy stuff and you're playing guitar and all that stuff. When did you start meeting people that were kind of going to local shows and stuff like that? Because I know that you've been friends, obviously, with like, I don't know, the people in the big bands or just people in general in the Bay for a long time now. So when did you start actually meeting like your peers and just in general people who are more in like the South Bay scene or in the Bay Area in general?
Honestly, it was all those shows at the Refuge. Like,
gotcha.
The amount of like, like when I started going to shows, like there were people who were older than me, obviously, and like, I was an awkward high school kid. Every now and then, like I'd see someone, I was like, they look the same age as me, but I'm far too shy to like go say hi. And then like my homie Andy, he was the original drummer in No Right. Like I met him through the first really horrible band I was in, and then became like my best friend. And then he knew a lot more people, so like just hanging out with him, he's like, hey, look, he's my friend. Like, and then there's over the years like Adrian from Big Boy. Like I remember I met him on an Xbox Live party. Like,
how random!
It's one of my favorite stories. Like, I remember Andy was like, "Hey, like we're playing Halo," and I was like, "Okay," and like hop on, and then like there's like a bunch of voices I don't recognize, and Adrian was like, "Hey, like we haven't met, but like I go to shows too. Like, my name's Adrian." I was like, "Oh, that's what's up." Like, cool. And then we've been friends ever since. And like, it's just, yeah. mostly through homie Andy. And then, you just start meeting new people, like,
yeah.
And then
he introduces you to people, and then you become friends with them, and then they introduce you to people. It's just like a constant cycle of how that goes. Yeah, it just kind of goes to show where it's like, hey, you meet one person, then that person knows 2 or 3 other people.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And then those 2 or 3 other people know 5 or 6 other people, and then it just kind of, there's like a ripple effect from there.
Yeah, I feel like everyone that goes to shows has the one homie that's like, check this shit out. Look at this whole world you can be a part of, or like, and then you're like, oh, that's cool. I'm gonna be a part of that.
Dude, 100%. So you meet all these people and stuff like that, and are you recording bands at this time, or did that come later, or was that something you were doing right off the bat as you were maybe learning guitar? I just kind of want to know, when did that come into the picture in your life?
Got you. I basically started recording, going back to the friendly competition with homie Julian, like we also love that game Rock Band, and they give you like a little USB microphone that's just like this one.
Yeah.
And that mic sounds really good.
Oh, really?
I don't think people realize that. Like, I would like try to like, I would write these like riffs that I thought were cool, and I would like, I didn't know how to like save them. And like my phone, I don't know when I got an iPhone exactly, but iPhone, I didn't even think had video recording for like the longest time. So like there was no way for me to.
It was just like pictures.
It was just pictures. Like I remember I had to download a separate app to record video, which is insane to think about.
Yeah, that is crazy.
But like I remember I was like, dude, like these riffs are like, to my freshman, sophomore brain, I was like, these riffs are dope. So I'd just throw a mic in front of my cheap little practice amp and just like into GarageBand. And then I would just have these riffs, and I was like, yeah, that was nice. That was cool. And then I don't even think the band had a name, but a couple friends, we started like a band, and like, when you're like a junior in high school, you don't have money to go to record, like, and, trying to ask your parents for like hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to go do something that they probably aren't too stoked on is like,
yeah, they're like, why are you wasting your time doing that?
Yeah. And I feel like that's how most people get into recording, where it's like, you're broke in high school. Like, I'm just going to try it myself. And like, I did a demo for an old band. Again, didn't have a name. It was just like, oh, like, let's put this out and see. And like, people are like, oh, like, where'd you go to record that? And I was like, oh, my bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
And like, oh, that's cool. Like, can I do like a demo with you? I have like this, I have this idea for this song. And at the time, like, as I got like better, even though it was the same shitty practice amp, but I was like learning, like, you can position the microphone differently on the speaker. And I was like, well, this is kind of sounding better. Like, I bought like a drum program because I didn't know any drummers and we also didn't have like a space where like I could just like set up a drum kit and like jam with, if I had drummer friends at the time.
Yeah.
And like I just started like programming drums for like these like riffs that I had that were horrible. And then I like the demos that I put out, I programmed drums, and people were like, yo, the drums sound dope. And I was like, thanks, they're fake.
Yeah,
and
totally.
That's, literally what got me into recording. And then, have record friends' demos, and then friends' bands would be like, hey, like, we don't, like, you want to record our first single? And I was like, sure. And, say like, give me $50 or like buy me dinner or something like that.
Yeah, it kind of goes from there, snowballs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Interesting. So what was this, I want to know what was the first thing that you recorded of the notable Bay entities, maybe not even of now, but just in general. What was the first of those entities that you started recording? Not even consistently, but just like recorded in general. Like it could even be just like a band that isn't in existence anymore, but people like know about.
That's a good question. I feel like, I mean, it's like weird because like it, 90% of the bands I recorded, the reason I started recording here was when like complete strangers started hitting me up, and I was like, I should probably not be bringing strangers into my parents' living room to like record, so I should probably find a studio to like
to rent out.
I don't know. I feel like there's this band Gardens from Salinas that like
I'm very aware.
Yeah, I love that band. Like, and I remember
Cody from Drain plays in that band.
Yeah,
he plays drums for them.
Yeah, it was like I remember actually decent amount of bands from Salinas, like Santa Cruz area, but it was like Young Love, Sammy and Tim and Justin,
old band,
and Sam, the singer.
Like
I think that was like, because we were like, we knew each other, but we weren't like friends, but we knew each other well enough where like we could hang out. It wouldn't be like weird, like especially like hey, come to my parents' like living room.
Yeah, I gotcha.
But I don't know. I feel like that was like some of the first records where like, I recorded and it was like, damn, this feels good. Like I'm like making friends, like these people who I kind of knew, like I know better, and like we're cool. Like the recordings sound fun. Like
yeah.
And then it kind of just went from there. But yeah, no, I think I'm fortunate that like a lot of my friends are just stupid talented.
Dude, facts.
Yeah, and it makes recording isn't that hard. It's just the music you do is what people perceive as good or bad. So like I'm very fortunate that like a lot of my friends are really good at what they do.
And have gotten better too.
Yeah,
because again, like you record earlier bands and earlier projects, and that might not be as good as like what they'll record next and stuff like that. It's just like that constant evolution. Because when I first heard of you, I was like, dude, this dude's recorded like most of the bands that I love from the Bay. Like, what the fuck? Like, that's crazy. So you've been recording them for, a hot minute. I mean, like 2016 was probably like when those first bands were probably hitting you up.
I think so. Yeah. Honestly, like COVID has totally fucked up my like whole sense of time. But,
of course.
I remember 2018 or like late 2017, 2018 is when I started recording out of here. Mm-hmm. So like, like the Young Love EP, Gardens, like I'm trying to think of like other like friends bands that came through. Scowl. No Rights first EP was done in my parents' living room. Like, and I think that was like, not the toot our own horn, but like that EP was dope because like we did it in the living room and we put it out and people were like stoked on it. And I was like, damn, this was literally like, there was like 8 microphones like in a living room and like people were pretty stoked on this. Like maybe I'm like not horrible at this. And then, then the bigger bands it helps recording engineers. Cause like, I feel like
then your notoriety gets bigger and people want to record with you and stuff like that.
It's a weird thing that like, I think people don't realize is like, I could be stoked on a band I recorded last week, but especially now, because a lot of bands are getting big, like people won't know about that for another 6 to 9 months. So there's like a huge wait time where I'm like,
facts.
I'll record something and I'm like, dude, this is dope. Whenever this comes out, like people are going to be hyped. And then like, it'll come out and I was like, oh yeah, I did that. That was like 6 months ago. Like, especially like, people have to wait like
for physicals and like labels and all this stuff.
Waiting like a year plus for vinyl and shit like that for like albums to come out. Like the amount of times where I'm just like, oh, like, I forgot we did that together. I'm very excited that's out now.
Dude, totally. So what was the first of the bands that you record that got big, I would say? Like what was the first thing that you recorded that got a lot of notoriety? Just outside of the circles locally?
I don't know. I feel like it's like a tie between like Gulch and Tsunami because like Gulch, like I sort of begged Cole to like record that EP because like, Cole is another like when I first started going to shows, like he was like big deal to me because like, it was another Hoppa dude going to shows. And I was like, oh,
totally.
Shit, like he kind of looks like me. That's dope. And then he used to record bands like before we got in the screen printing. And I was like, damn, that's even cooler.
I forgot about that. He recorded like the Hands of God like demo and stuff.
Yeah,
I forgot about that.
And he recorded my friend Julian, his band Forlorn. He recorded that. Like he did all the True Hearted stuff. He recorded all of his own bands, and I was like, oh, like that's cool. Like, and it goes back to what we were talking about, like just watching someone do something. Mm-hmm. You're like, I can do that. That's awesome. And like it was kind of a tie between Gulch and Tsunami because like Gulch, we did that EP. And then that came out and like people like it was well received, like people really liked it, but it wasn't until like
the LP.
COVID. Yeah, well it was like COVID. It was right before COVID. I think they had that video.
This
played.
Is hardcore, or was it like the one with the Peace of Justice
Center? Like that video came out, and that was like, I think it was the same year, but it was a while after the EP came out, and then it's
like 2019.
Yeah, it started getting more eyes on them. I mean, it's like the normal cycle of like bands starting out or just putting out a good album finally.
Yep.
And then finally is not the right word for Gulch. They've always been awesome. And then Tsunami was around that same time when that video. I think that was that same show, or
no,
it was a Halloween show.
Yeah, it was a Halloween show. It was like, I think Big Boy's first show, Extinguish played, and then Tsunami,
because
Spinebreaker.
I think
and Foghorn.
Yeah, Extinguish did like a Hatebreed cover.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they played as Hatebreed. Yeah,
I remember that. And then it was like a tie between those two bands really, because I feel like that time period was when like there was like a swell of like interest in like Bay Area bands, and then COVID hit, and then it kind of like dropped, and then when shows started coming back, that interest started to come back, but like there's so many more people involved
nowadays. Yeah, for sure, especially.
Yeah, and like Homies and Scowl, like the LP we did was dope. World Peace.
Spy.
Yeah, Spy. Like, there's so many like friends bands. Like, I mean, like Peter from Spy. Like, I've known him like over 10 years. Like, Dang. It's like he was just the goofy homie for the longest time.
Did you know when he played in Rings of Saturn?
I didn't. I met him basically like, when did I meet him actually? There was a venue in Walnut Creek called the Red House that he used to play in another like horrible like metal band.
Okay.
And then like I met him through, friends, and then just, became friends from there. Like we tried to do like a grindcore project together, and then like just a bunch of like fun like one-off songs, and then he moved to Vancouver.
Yeah, I remember.
To go to school, and then like No Right played in Vancouver twice. And we stayed at his house both times, and
dope.
Like, and now he's in like Spy, like fucking touring the world, and like World Peace. I met Derek is like one of Peter's like best friends, like
yes.
old friends.
Yep.
Like, I mean, they're touring in Japan right now.
Yeah, that's sick with
like
Wrath.
Yeah, there's like two. That's the thing that's crazy is like two like my friends' bands are just like touring Japan like casually,
killing it.
Yeah, like, and then Scowl's like on the road 24/7. Like it's cool to see, but yep. I feel like everything leading up to COVID, and then like when shows started coming back was when like a lot of people were like, hey, like you did that one record, and I was like, yeah, those are my dudes.
Yeah, those are the homies.
Yeah.
So because I remember recently or something that like Kat had posted that you had recorded the Scowl EP in your like in your, was it your parents' house or your house or somebody's house?
We did the vocals at
your house.
Yeah.
And were you here at that point already? Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
We did the whole EP. Actually, we did the EP in this room because I think they booked that room, but there was like an issue with the computer, so Sam's like, "Oh, just use this room."
Use this one." Okay, gotcha.
But we did the whole EP, and then I mean, I was stoked on how it sounded, but Kat, they weren't happy with Kat's vocals or something, so they wanted to redo the vocals. And like at the time, like when I first heard their demo, like I heard her voice and I was like, I know what you're trying to do. Like I hear like with the direction you're going in, like let's like work on that. And then like I don't even remember what they sounded like when we did it in the studio, but it sounded a lot better. But then because they're super serious about like what they do and like proud of the work they do, they're like, oh, like
could do it better.
Yeah, we're gonna do it again. Like, can we just like do it at your parents' house? And I was like, sure, yeah, come through.
Okay, dope. So with that, I was like, okay, so come here around like you got into here around 2017-ish. How does the connection with you happen with this place? Because this place, if anybody doesn't know, like a lot of crazy Bay Area bands,
pop punk mecca,
a lot of pop punk bands have like recorded here, and this is just like a dope spot anyway. So how did the relationship between you and Sam, I guess, who owns this place, kind of develop? And you were like, hey, like maybe I could start recording here. How did that happen with you guys?
So my homie Clay, he used to, I don't know what his like official title was, but he worked here. He wasn't like an audio engineer. I think he like helped manage or something, but he worked with Sam. And I met him through, going to shows. And I think I was like, I forgot. We used to be in a group chat together, and I was just like, oh, like this like group of people I do not know just hit me up, and like I don't know if I'm gonna bring these fools to my parents' house.
What band was it?
I don't even remember.
Oh, really?
It was just like I said, like it was all every band I recorded like at my parents' house were more or less friends, like, or like I knew, like the person who told me about them, I trusted them enough to be like, okay, I can bring these people into like my parents' house and not feel sketched out. But there was like a couple bands, again, I don't remember who, that were just like, hey, we want to record with you. And I'm like, oh, yeah, no, I can't do that. And then I think I was complaining about that. I was like, oh, dude, I just had to turn people down. Yeah, there's this like random band that, you know, wanted to pay me money that like, you know, sounded cool that I wanted to record. And Clay at the time worked here. He's like, oh, like, let me like introduce you to Sam, like, you know, work at Panda. And I was like, that'd be kind of cool.
But you knew of Sam before.
Yeah, I mean, like,
I assumed.
I feel like, you know, I wasn't like, I'm still not the biggest pop punk fan, but like all those records sound insane.
Oh yeah.
And and you know, growing up, like, it was weird with me because like I've always taken an interest in like the production of like music and like film and stuff like that. And like, but I've never, I don't know why, I never like looked at like the lyric sheet and being like, oh, like who did this or like who recorded it? I was always just like, that sounds dope.
Yeah.
And I associate it with like the sound with the band rather than like the producer. So like I didn't realize that, you know, all the bands that my friends were hyping, like Story So Far, Basement, I realized all those bands like recorded in the Bay Area. And then well, I did when I started recording more, because I like, you know, they would post pictures of me like Fremont, and I was like, where the hell is there a studio in Fremont? Like,
yeah, I see.
But then, you know, Clay brought me in here. Like, I forgot who. Sam was like mixing or recording someone, and like, you know, I just sat right there on the couch, and he was like mixing for me. He's like, hey, you can like hang out, and like, it was so funny. He had an assistant whose name I do not remember. You know, Sam's a big pothead.
Yeah.
And like his assistant was like toasted, just like baked beyond belief. And I remember sitting there and like, you know, they're passing whatever they have around, and then like the assistant's like, oh, like, do you want some? I was like, oh, I'm good, thank you though. And he's like, okay, cool. And like not even 5 minutes later, he's like, I was like, oh, I'm fine. He's like, okay. And then I shit you not, it's like literally he went like this and then just turned back around immediately. It was like,
I just forgot that you had said that.
Yeah, I was just like, oh, dude, I don't smoke, it's good. He's like, oh, okay, I'll just leave it right here for you. And I was like, okay. But then like, you know, just Sam was like, yeah, just shoot me an email like whenever you have like a date, and then I'll like, you know, we can set something up. And I was like, okay, that was easy.
So is there like an interview like, hey, this is like what your hours here will be, and this is the rate? Or was he just like, all right, just come record here now? And
I think he just wanted to make sure I wasn't like a total weirdo.
Yeah,
like, honestly, because like, I mean, you know, you open especially like a larger or a studio that has more than one room, like, you know, usually you do that so you can rent it out to other people. And,
yeah,
like,
definitely.
You don't want like total psychopaths, because like you have to be weird enough to like do recording or anything with sound.
Pursue that actively.
Yeah, regardless of the genre, you just have to be weird in general. So I feel like especially in like audio or post-production, like when you meet other people who are the same level as weird as you're like, I want to be your friend. Like there's too many like weirdos out there.
Yeah,
like actual psychopaths.
Yeah, I get you.
But I think like, you know, hung out, like we got along. I mean, like and then just went from there. He's like, yeah, just let me know when you have dates, and then we'll set something up. And you know.
That's dope.
Yeah.
So speaking of like kind of strange ways, strange people in bands in general, I kind of wanted to talk about Tsunami a little bit, because they're, again, just like the craziest enigma band, but just hearing for the first time the way that they record music, at least in the beginning more so. I don't know if the LP was any different, but in the beginning it was just like, you know, dirt, didn't even have any riffs, so they would just book studio time and then come here and then just like write on the spot. Was that like something that they were like, hey, you know, we want to do this project, but we have no songs written or anything like that. We're just gonna come to the studio and just like see what comes out. Like, what was that like early on, like for you? I guess were you like, I don't know, but
so it kind of goes back to like when I was talking about when I did like demos for friends, where I was like, oh, I have like, you know, a drum program, and I know how to do it really fast. And like it was kind of the same where he used to be in that band You Lose,
yes,
which became Forced to Suffer. And at the time, I don't know if they didn't have a drummer, or like, I think it might have just started the same way Tsunami did, where he's like, hey, like me and Jared like are doing a band, like I have a couple riff ideas, but I don't have a drummer. Like, can you like program drums for a demo? I was like, sure. And then the drums sounded really cool. And like, I'm still proud of that. That EP was dope. Like, I love the sound of it. And I think like, you know, he did that for a while. And then, you know, he's in a bunch of different bands over the years. And I think when he had the idea for Tsunami, or when they decided to make Tsunami real, because it was like a bit for a while. Like,
yeah.
Dirt was just like, oh, like I have like, you know, a couple riffs, like you just want to do like what we did with You Lose, and I was like, sure. And then, you know, it's funny because like I feel like people, like it blows people's mind when I was like, oh yeah, like he just has a couple riffs and we like, you know, just wrote the drums out. But it's like that's what every band does.
It's facts.
It's just, you know, it's different. I think Dirt also realized that, like, you know, when we did all program drums for the first couple albums, and then when they got Ben to record, like, it's a lot easier to write stuff when you're not being deafened by drums in the room, and you can like record something and then listen back to it like immediately without like the volume changing like your perception of the riff.
Oh, I getcha. So for those early ones, were you like, he would just like spew out a riff or something like that, and then you'd put drums underneath it, and then immediately after you'd be like, okay, let's listen to that back. All right, that's cool. We're gonna tweak this. Like, was that kind of how it went, or was it just like, oh, they spew out, you know, guitar, and then we're gonna do drum, or I'm gonna program drums now later. How did that go? I guess
it was basically it was a mix, because there were some songs that Dirt had where he was like, oh, I have like 3 riffs. I was like, oh, that's cool. And then like he would hear the song, the 3 riffs he wrote, and he's like, oh shit, that gives me an idea. And then I was like, what's your idea? He's like, this, but I don't know what to do. And I was like, oh, what if we did this? He's like, oh, that's cool. And then it would just be like that. And then there's sometimes he'd be like, hey, like, can I come demo something? And he'd play a riff, and I was like, what's next? He's like, I don't know. And it, you know, it's like every band, it's just you have like little chunks of ideas, and then when you hear it back, you know, it sometimes inspires stuff, or sometimes you hear it and like, oh, that shit sucks. And
yeah,
there were
totally.
definitely, like, I remember, I forgot what it was, but there was like one release where like we were struggling on one song. Like the riff was, it was like 1 or 2 riffs that were really cool, but it just wasn't going anywhere. And like there was one day where he came over and like we worked for like, you know, hours, and then he was just like I'm just gonna dip, like just send me the song, I'll listen to it. And then, you know, he texted me, he's like, maybe I need the drink or something, I need to be like loose. And then next time he came by, like brought a bunch of beers, and then he got buzzed, and he was just like, this still isn't working. And then like 2 weeks later he comes back, and he's there for like an hour, and he's just like, yeah, this isn't gonna work, I'm just like, I gotta come back to it. And like,
did that become a song?
I honestly don't know. And that's like, it's same thing with Scowl, where like I was stoked they weren't happy with it, because they were like, it just proves that they're thinking about like what they're doing, because there's definitely a lot of bands, like good or bad, that are just like, oh, like here's a song, and like, yeah, sometimes you're just like, oh, like that was cool, like that was dope, I like that. And other times you're like, oh, I could tell you just like pulled that out of your ass. And like, that's the thing with like Tsunami that I really like, is like, you know, it's them as a whole is hilarious, but like if you listen to the riffs are like cool, like, yeah,
they're sick,
like regardless of like if you don't like certain parts of the music, you can always isolate something and be like, yeah, that was impressive.
Yeah.
And you know, we did that, and then Ben got in the band. I think there was one album where we programmed drums, but Ben was in the band, but I think they just wanted to sound fake intentionally.
It was probably like the Split. Was it the Split they did?
I think it was the Split, yeah. Yeah, it was a Split. We did
with Gulch.
Yeah, we did program drums for that, and then we did the promo.
Was the promo programmed as well?
No, that was the promo was the first time Ben recorded on anything Tsunami related.
Okay.
And it was funny, the promo, like I think the promo was supposed to be like an EP, and Dirt was like, oh yeah, we're gonna do like
LP.
Well, he was basically, I think the original idea was like they were gonna do like a couple original songs and then like 4 covers, and he was like, here's all the covers we're gonna do. And I was like, dope. And I was like, you know, Animosity was one of them. I was like, okay, I know that one. Yeah. And he named like a bunch of other like bands. I was like, oh, like I know that, but I haven't listened to it in a while. So I was like, you know, I had like a little playlist. I would study it every now, like if I go for a drive, like go to get food or coffee, I'd like play it. And they show up, I think they booked like 2 days. So it's like, oh, like you're doing like 6 songs, like we're gonna need some time. They're like, Dirt's like probably the most efficient guitarist ever to record.
He's so good.
Yeah, so I was like, I've recorded Ben before, but I was like, you guys are really good, but like we're gonna need time. And then he pulls up and I was like, all right, what are we doing first? He's like, yeah, we only have 2 songs, so we're gonna re-record one and then do they were gonna re-record one and then do the Animosity cover, and then
do an original.
Well, that was the thing that I think this is like the changing point for them, which like there's very few bands that do it in the studio this way, just because like they jam a lot and they're really good at jamming. So like whenever they record, it's Ben in the room. That's most bands. It's like drummer and then, the guitarist or whoever wrote the song guitar is in the room with them, watching them. They jam together. Like we record like a scratch guitar, then record over those drums. And then there was like one part where like, I think they weren't sure on a part. And I was like, oh, just like jam. I'll just record everything. And then we can just listen back, like program drums, like how we normally do. We'd listen back, pick a thing, and then you can elaborate on it. And they're like, oh. And then I think I don't know, I was on my phone. I went to the bathroom or something. I just let it roll for like 20 minutes. And then like whenever I hear something, I'd like mark it. And I was like, oh, I like that. And like set a marker on the computer. And we come back to it. Then we like would Frankenstein the song together through like these little like recording chunks. And then they'd listen to it and then they'd be like, okay, I get it. And then they'd go back and record it for real, which is, it's not like, saying like that's how bands used to do it, because that's how bands do it. But like, I think that was a big turning point for them. We're like, oh, like we can just like wing it for the most part and then revisit.
And then just chunk them together. Yeah.
Because like I said, like collaborating is fun, but like I feel like your perception of a riff changes when you're going deaf, because you're like the cymbals are killing your ears, or like you're in a tiny garage or some shit. So like being able to like be in the moment, go crazy riff, and then sit down, calm down, and then listen at a quieter volume in detail. You're like, oh, like you did the one thing here that was really cool, and I was like, oh, I didn't even mean to, and they're like, oh, well, keep doing that. Like, and it's like it's just cool how like you can be inspired by either like a mistake or just like the classic, like, what was that? And I was like, I don't know. And I was like, shit, try to do something like that.
Yeah, totally.
So you don't lose anything, basically.
Yeah. Wow, that's so interesting. Yeah, what an interesting, like, dynamic, I think. That's, what is it like recording with bands that only have one person, like, doing everything? Like, I know Feel the Flames does it like that. The band that I play in, Angel, Marco did it like that.
Yeah.
Like, is it more difficult or than recording with a whole band, or is it more efficient because there's just one dude being like, all right, I'm just spitting all these ideas out of my own head, there's no one to be like, oh, I didn't like that, or there's no like headbutting or anything like that,
there's like less cooks in the kitchen for the most part, but like it depends. Like your band Angel, Marco did a great job. Like I remember when we first met each other, met his parents, because they hung out, and like he was like, I was like, oh, like, have you recorded before? Like, how do you want to record this? Do you want to do it to a click? Do you want to do it live? He's like, oh, I want to record it like Justin does. And I was like, okay, like, so just, done that. Like Justin, Feel the Flames does it like more or less. No Right does it, because usually like I'll write the songs with like program drums and then send it to Adrian, and then like he like learns it and does his own thing to it. And then World Peace, like, that band eventually shifted into just Derek doing everything.
Yeah.
And like it's the same thing where like the only thing I can't really do is like I guess it's different for World Peace and Feel the Flames, because like I've recorded them often enough where like I'll hear a drum part without hearing the guitar riff, and I'm like, okay, I think they're gonna do this. So it's like it's not predictable, but you just learn how people's brains like,
work.
move.
Yeah.
And like Marco, like, he's inspired. That's the other weird thing is like he's like inspired by like my friend's band. So like he would do things. And I was like, that kind of sounds like a Sammy like drum part. Or like, oh, that sounds like he's gonna do like he's gonna do like a switch up like this. And I'm like, oh, okay, he did it. And then it's interesting. Like I think that's the hard part, is learning how people's brains work in that sense. But then it is efficient, because it's like World Peace, like they're like the example when bands are like, how much time should I book? And I was like, well, granted, World Peace songs are like 20
seconds,
20 to 30 seconds
power
long
stuff, yeah.
But like, they can record 20 songs in like 3 days, because Derek practices. He shows up, like he'll record the drums with no bass on it, and I like, I know majority what the riffs he's gonna do now because I've recorded them so often. But like, it is kind of fun. It's like a fun game where I'm kind of just like, is he gonna do this or this? He's like, I was wrong. He did that instead, or like trying to guess
flip flopping and all that.
But it's pretty efficient. Like, but it is like, it's also fun going from like recording like a Justin or a Derek or a Marco, and then recording another band where like Extinguish, where everyone's involved.
Writing.
Yeah, everyone's involved. Like, obviously like one person started the song, and then usually like there's one person and the drummer, and then everyone kind of sprinkles ideas in. But it's like cool, like
very collaborative.
Yeah, because like sometimes it's fun, like especially World Peace. The last two things we've done, just because everyone lives. I think Derek still lives in LA, but everyone lives everywhere, and like I mean, Peter's not in the band anymore, but when Peter was in the band, Spy was just starting to tour a lot.
Yeah.
So it would just be like, Derek's like, hey, do you want coffee? I'm going to be there at 11. I was like, okay. And it would just be me and him for like the entire day. And then,
well, Spy was the same way, where it's like just Peter recording all everything.
Exactly, yeah. And then like, I'll record Extinguish, where it's all 5 people in Extinguish, and then they have like 10 friends come in throughout the day.
to do stuff.
Yeah, and then usually like they stay at this. That's my favorite part about at least the first EP or the second EP. We're like, we record, and then I was like, all right, like I'm going home, see you in the morning. And then like, if I'm laying in bed, going to sleep, and I'm just scrolling through Instagram, and there's just random people who are at the studio where I'm just like, what the fuck? When'd you show up?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Or it's like being like, all right, there's like 4 people that came by tonight, and then like the next day, like they have a bunch of homies come through, and it's
because they're staying here.
Yeah, it's just fun. Like it makes it so that it's not boring. Like even though like I'm fortunate to continually record friends' bands, but like I said, going to record like someone like Derek who just does everything himself. It's just him. No one else comes through except for Christian, who's doing vocals later. But like, and then a literal party.
Yeah, a little. Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. Yeah, that's funny.
It's nice. Recharge your social battery.
Definitely. So we've been talking about the recording stuff and all that, and obviously that's a very integral part of like what you do and stuff. But I did want to talk about No Right for a little bit, because that's a band that you helped create, obviously, because you write the guitars and stuff like that. How was that initially conceptualized? Was it Sierra being like, hey, I want to do this kind of project, or was that, or she just like, how did that start, I guess? Sierra
initially had,
or when did you meet Sierra? I guess that might be even a better.
I've known her for a long time, like just going to shows. Like I don't even remember the first time I met her. It was just she was always at shows, and then I remember she used to have shows in her parents' garage, which were like always fun, like
sick.
And then like I've just known her forever, and then she had a lineup who I don't even remember who was in it, but she had like 3 people who were down to do a band, and like they did a practice, and then typical having members that are in 12 bands, like they do one practice, they write a song, and then they kind of ghost you, or like they get busy basically.
Of course.
And then she knew that back to Tsunami, or like I think it was You Lose at the time, and other like random bands. She's like, oh, like I know you like do program drums, like can I just come to you and like can you like help me write a song and I could just do vocals over it? And I was like, sure. And I wasn't in the band. She was just like, hey, like can you just do me a favor? So like we wrote the song No Right, we wrote in like 20 minutes, like the instrumentation at least, and it was like done, the instruments were done within an hour, and I was like, okay, like your turn. She's like, ah, shit. She's like, I've never done this before.
Oh, gotcha.
So like we worked on like lyrics and like
patterns and stuff.
Yeah, and like it's always tough like working with someone who's like, I mean, she has a musical background, like she did like band stuff in like,
as everybody does.
Yeah. So
it's
she
cool.
like it wasn't like totally a foreign language to her, but like she's never sang for a band before, and like I think just like working, especially just because like all the topics that she like sings about are like very specific to like her like upbringing, which is just like the saddest story.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So like I think when we were working on that song, like we kind of just like we made a connection where I was like, okay, like I get what you're saying, and like we just worked really well together, and then put the song out. I still wasn't in the band. I think it was just like, oh, like this will be fun. Like the idea was like, I'll write this song for you. You can put it out, and then people will be like, yo, this is cool. Like I want to be in your band.
Oh, I see.
And then put it out, and I was like, yeah, actually working with you is kind of fun. We should let me just be your guitarist. And then we just started writing. And then Tyler Bray, he joined the band playing bass. And then we had Andy, the original drummer. Our first show, which like No Right kind of exists because Malachi is Malachi. Because like I remember like, you know, typical Malachi. He's like, "Oh, you doing any bands like
Malachi of Scowl?" If nobody knows,
I assume everyone knows him at this point. Like, because there's only one, I only know one Malachi.
This facts. If you're from the Santa Cruz Bay Area, then there's only one Malachi that we know. Yeah,
and I think like Sierra was just like, "Oh, Malachi started a band." He's like, "Oh, really? Like, want to play a show next week or next month or whatever?" And she's like, "We don't have members." He's like, "Oh, well, you can open it." So we had Adrian from Big Boy play drums. Our one song. We played our one song.
You played one song?
Yeah, we just played No Right. Like,
oh my god.
I forgot even who was on that show. Like, I feel like Momentum or something. There was like a band from LA that was on that show.
Dead Heat?
No, it might have been Momentum. I can't remember. I remember Jordan was singing.
Was there?
He was singing in the band, so I don't know if he was in a band prior to that, but
I couldn't tell you.
Anyways, like we played that and it was fun. We played the one song and then you know, people were into it and I was like, "Oh, we should probably like do actual music." Because at the time, like, you know, me, Sierra, and Tyler were in college. Andy was working, so like we're all just busy.
Yeah.
And you know, we're slow as fuck to do anything. And majority of it is my fault too. Like, as I've gotten busier doing recording stuff, like usually the last thing I want to do is like listen to more music. Like, especially because the way I write is how I've been not teaching, but how a lot of bands come to me to like try to like start their band. It's like, "Oh, let's like do program drums and like, or like help me do this." And it's like, that's how I've been writing. So like I sort of get burnt out on it. So like I'll go like, you know, a week or two without playing guitar and then be like, "Oh, I have an idea," and then forget about it for a month or whatever. But
I see.
Then, you know, we had our EP, then we played our first show. Fuck, I can't even remember who played. I remember Profile played. And shit, I think Firewalker. I can't remember.
This was your first show?
This was our first like official show with like more than one song.
Okay, gotcha.
And like that show, it was at this like this fucking gigantic like warehouse in downtown San Jose. Well, not downtown San Jose, or kind of downtown. It was like a Quince Hall or something.
Nice.
But it was just basically a giant reverb chamber.
Oh,
it sounded horrible.
It was way too big for the amount of people that were there.
Well, that was the thing. This was like the first show that I went to there that like it was packed out.
Oh,
it
really?
It was insane. And I was just, because all the shows, like, we either like my old bands or like my friends' bands, and like, you know, 50 people at a show for just like your homies' bands at the time was like dope. You're like, damn, it's hella full here. But like 50 people in like a room that's like, you know, 5,000 square feet.
Yeah, totally.
You're like, damn, nobody showed up.
Yeah.
But like there were so many people there, and I was like, oh, this is cool. And then, you know, we started getting more attention from that.
So that was like, so right off the bat, was it kind of right off the bat people were like, "Oh, this band's sick," like, or did it take like a little bit of time for people to catch on?
It was kind of, I feel like it was sort of, I guess it was sort of polarizing, because there was like a, you know, a large chunk of fools who were just like, "Oh, like I hate her voice," or like, I hate bands with girl singers," or just like the most like
the typical shit.
Yeah, just stupid shit. But like, I don't know, I feel like people were like either really down with it or they hated it, which is like, I mean, I'd rather it be that way than just be like, "Oh, they're okay."
That's true.
But yeah, it was cool. But you know, we did like a couple tours that were fun.
Yeah, because I remember you guys like played around.
Yeah,
like I've seen videos of you like playing in Canada and stuff like that. So yeah, you guys have been around like pre-pandemic at least. Like again, post-pandemic, you guys have been a little bit more quiet.
Yeah, it's just, it's always like timing too, because like, you know, when No Right was starting, I was like halfway through college, I think. Basically, we're all like halfway through college, and then like as we were finishing college, we were like, dude, I can't even think about doing anything other than like finals and then like going to work right now and then sleeping. So like I don't have time to do that. And then I remember there's like, I think it was like the first like real tour like No Right did. Well, real tour was like 5 days. It was like finals week, and I was just like, I had this asshole teacher where I was just like, you know what, like fuck you, like I'll retake this class. I'll just eat whatever money I paid. Like, I'll just retake this class. I'm just going to go on this tour and like, I'll try to do my homework on the road or something.
Yeah.
And it was like
classic hardcore kid story of like either quitting a job or failing a class to do a tour.
Yeah. I was just like, dude, I'm losing my fucking mind. Like, it's like, yeah, I'm going to lose thousands of dollars because I have to retake this stupid class or like, pay it back later, student loans.
Yeah.
But I was like, fuck it. Like, my homies, we have an opportunity. My homies are like down, which is like, I mean, it's so hard to do to get 4 or 5 people down to agree on one thing.
Of course.
And then we all graduated. We all graduated around the same time, and then we done like another tour, and we're like, oh, all right, let's do an LP now. And then COVID hit.
I see.
And then like, my industry, that was around the time when I started recording. Like, recording was like my only job at the time, because I worked in like restaurants and stuff prior.
Yeah.
And then, entertainment was the first thing to shut down. So I was like, oh shit, like, my goal was like, I was going to graduate, I was going to tour for the rest of the year, then I was going to like, work with bands and open a studio and then start doing what I wanted to do.
Doing your thing, yeah.
And then COVID hit and I was like, all right, well, that's going to...
All right, I got to do something else.
Yeah, I was like, well, I guess, I remember like, it's like, oh, it's going to be a couple month vacation or something, and like, being up till like 4 a.m. playing Call of Duty with all like your friends that should be touring but aren't.
Yeah,
just
totally.
Like, being psychopaths, grown adults being psychopaths on the internet, which is fun. But then, we lost some members over the pandemic. And then, it was just, I feel like there was like most bands, like there was like a certain level of productivity. Like when you're like, okay, this is going to be like this for a while, I should probably do something productive.
Yeah.
And like we wrote a song, and then, just everyone got busy. Like I worked at Amazon for a bit because I was just like, this was so slow that I was like, I need to like
make money.
Yeah, I need to make money.
Yeah, totally.
So like, just life got weird, and then now we have a solid lineup. And I'm just like stoked. Like we have like half of an LP written. We're actually recording a song tomorrow for a comp.
Nice.
And like
keep an eye out for that.
Basically like all the songs, like I feel like we finally like found a system where, see, it was just Sierra and I for the longest time, and now we have like 3 new members in the band.
Yeah.
And Adrian, like used to be in Spy, used to be in a band Bottled Up with me.
Okay, gotcha.
Bottled Up was like,
was it drummer? Yeah.
Yeah, drummer. Yeah, is like Bottled Up eventually like split into like Kenny started doing Fentanyl after Bottled Up stopped. Thomas joined No Right for a bit. Now he's in Spy.
Yep.
And then we recently picked up Sean, who used to be in Click.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So he's in the band, and then Jose.
Yeah.
So it's like,
you now have a lineup.
Yeah, we have like a solid lineup, and everyone is like on the same page. So I'm just stoked like to, put up new music. Like it was funny. Like I was talking to Sierra, like we had like a practice, like where like Sean and Adrian like working a song together, and I was like, this is so weird. Like,
yeah,
I'm just sitting here watching, and this is dope. Like I don't have to do everything. I don't have to do everything, and it's gonna be easier for sure. Like,
that's awesome.
But I'm excited.
So you guys are gonna put out an LP at some point. I think Sierra's mentioned that it's gonna be on Triple B.
Yeah, it's not. I don't know. It wasn't really official. I think she was just stoked because I think she was talking to what's his face,
Sam.
Yeah, and then he was just like, sure.
Okay, gotcha.
But I mean, you get excited when someone's like, "Yeah, we'll put out
a record."
Album. Yeah, but I think she also forgot the part where he was like, "Yeah, when you have one, sure, gotcha. Hit me up."
Yeah,
it wasn't like, "Yeah, here, like just send it over whenever."
Yeah, totally. But, so that may or may not happen. Who knows? But
I would like it to happen.
Of course, everyone would, dude. That would be. Everyone wants their album on Triple B or Days or any of those fucking sick labels.
Triple B's they're legends.
For sure. So do you guys have any plans of like doing tours or anything like that in the future, or are you just gonna be like the band that's like, we're just gonna like play intermittently whenever we get some cool shit offered to us, and
it just kind depends.
Of be just chill out, I guess.
I guess it depends because like. I feel like I forgot who I was talking to about this, but like, we all start bands just be like, oh, like this is fun, and like it's cool that a lot of our friends' bands are like, huge, like the biggest bands in hardcore, basically. But like, they didn't start out to be like, I want to tour the world. Like,
of course.
It's funny, like when Tsunami's like touring the world or announces like a tour in like another country, I'm just like, man, we were just like writing riffs in my bedroom, and like now they're like one of the biggest bands in hardcore. And like now a lot of the newer bands are just like, I mean, it's cool. It goes back to, you know, seeing someone do something. You're like, I can do that. But it's also like kind of weird where like bands now, like younger bands are like, we're going to tour the world. I'm like,
I see.
I was like, oh, okay. Like
that's the ambition.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, you know, I'm supportive. It's cool. Like I would much rather have like a band just be like, you know, regardless of what it's going to do, what they're going to do, just be like, this is our goal.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, cool, I'm here to help you do that in any way I can. But like No Right was just, you know, it started out with Sierra being like, can you do me a favor and write me a song? And then, you know, people, you know, I'm fortunate that people like our music. And, I want to tour more. It's fun. Like touring with friends it's weird. I don't like touring, but I love traveling with friends.
Yeah.
So like I love traveling.
There's definitely a difference.
Yeah, I love traveling. So like, especially like the group we have now, I would love to, you know, tour with them and like, you know, just put out new music. Like, I mean, we could play more shows, but like we've been playing the same songs for years at this point.
While, yeah.
And like, all the new stuff we have is like infinitely better.
Oh, than the other stuff.
Our other stuff. So it's like I want to put that out, but it's like, you know, we've done EPs all the time. Like, might as well just do an LP finally.
Totally.
But then, you know, that just comes down to me kind of being like, oh, I should probably write some more songs.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, no, at some point, like, you know, we all have jobs. We're all adults now. Like the timing of it too is like, you know, when No Right, I feel like we had the most eyes on us. Like we're all in college and like, you know, or we were either in college or working. So we couldn't just take time off from either of those. But yeah, we'll see.
Nice.
The world is weird, so
the world, yeah,
never
dude,
know
and you never know what'll happen, man. Yeah,
exactly.
Well, I mean, dude, thank you again.
No problem.
I think I've exhausted my supply of questions. I've kind of the last two interviews I've just been kind of going off the dome piece with questions and stuff, just because they're like first time. They're people that either have never done interviews or have only done like one interview, so I can ask them all.
And then
like,
you get Jose, and that fool just talks.
Dude, that fool does talk, which is sick. I think that for interviews, like you're the same way, man. Like you have you got a good amount of things to say, which is good.
Thank you. I'm not on Jose's level where he can like, you know, elaborate and then turn it into a bit halfway through it. I'm just like, there's so many times he'll be saying something. I'm just like, wait, I asked you a question.
Yeah, like, just go off on a tangent.
Yeah, or he'll answer with a bit. I'm just like, I think you answered what I asked.
Yeah, totally.
But thank you.
It's the homie right there.
He's the dude.
Well, thanks again for coming on. I appreciate
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
it's an honor,
dude. Fucking, this has been one I've been wanting to do for fucking ever.
We finally did it.
Yeah, we finally did it. Thank God. And then, yeah, I guess just whenever I put out another one, watch it. Check out No Right. Check out Panda Studio.